Today I'm going to make a newsletter block for our black and white star blocks for 2022. This is the August Sawblade Star, and it's a variation of what we just did in July. So the pattern pieces that we need are right here. You need 4 of your dark star squares. You need 4 background squares. You need 1 middle, I think this is 3.5 inch square, and 4 smaller squares. These are all on the pattern, and the pattern is free on my website. It's free download right now through this year. So the first thing that I need to do is I need to take all of these star squares, and I'm going to draw a line from corner to corner using a ruler and a pencil, and I'm going to do the same thing on these small squares because I know I'm going to use those in the same way in just a minute. All right, now I have the lines drawn. I had to use a friction pen because I couldn't get my pencil to show up, but we're going to be cutting on this line anyway, so I'm not worried about it showing anywhere. Okay, so I'm going to line these 2 squares up, and I am going to sew 1/4 of an inch on this side of the line and 1/4 of an inch on the other side of the line. All right, I have cut apart 3 of these squares to make the individual squares, but on this one there's a seam on either side of this line, if you can see it very well. I'm going to cut it apart on the line. You can use scissors. I'm using a rotary cutter, and I am going to press the seams. Okay, I have now 8 half square triangles. 4 are pressed to the blue side, and 4, the seam allowances, are pressed to the black side. But before I go on, I need to trim them. So I'm going to use my small ruler, and I'm going to lay the ruler with the 45-degree diagonal line on the line of the square. As long as I have enough on either side, it doesn't have to be, and I have to have enough. It has to give you at least 3.5 over here. So there I trimmed this left and the top, and we're going to do the same here. Uh-oh, that's getting very close. Don't do that, do it better, because that's a little close there. Not too much to trim. It will work though. Close is close. Let's do one more, and hopefully I will do a better job. We want these to be trimmed to be exactly 3.5 inches. So I'm going to be just trimming a wee tiny bit off. But this way I can be sure that my squares are big enough. Sometimes if you just do them at 3 7/8 or something, then when you trim them, they are just a little shy of being 3.5 inches. I am going to continue and trim all of these blocks before we go on to the next set. Okay, I have this laid out so that I have my blocks that are pressed to the blue are going to the blue, are not supposed to be there. Hold on. Okay, so this guy is supposed to be there. The blocks going to the blue, the seam allowances, are on the corners. The ones that are pressed to the black are in the middle. And you can look at your diagram and lay them out. It took me a few minutes, as you can see. I think I'm a very visual type learner. So lay them out, and then we take the lighter color, and we're going to lay them onto these inner 4 squares. Wait a minute. I see one of them is backwards. This one has to go this way. See? It took me a minute, but I think I've got him now. All right. So this is my lighter color. I'm going to lay this on this top blue section, and I'm going to lay the place that has the diagonal line. I'm going to lay that on this corner right here. And then I'm going to put a little pin in there so that I can take it to my sewing machine. And I am going to sew just barely. Where's my pointer? Now here's some scissors. I'm going to sew just barely to the inside of that line, closer to where it's going, closer to this corner. And I'm going to lay them all out and pin them, and then I'm going to take them to the sewing machine and sew them. So this one's going to go here. You don't have to pin them if you can just take them right over there and sew them, but I wanted to make sure that I have them in the right place at the right time so that I can take them all at one time and go over and sew. And I'm kind of watching on this print because I want the one with the most print to be the part. This is going to be folded down, so I want it to fold down so that that is showing. Okay, I'm going to take this to the sewing machine and I'm going to sew these four. I'm going to leave these guys just right where they are. Okay, I have these sewn and I thought I would show them hopefully up close. See where this, that pointer is, my magic pointer is hiding. Okay, see where the line was? And this stitch line is just on the side of the line. You don't want to get on the line or over the line. Sometimes that can be enough to make this not match up when you press it over. So I'm pressing it over, and then I will go and press it on the ironing board. And then once I've pressed it down and it's just the way I want it, then I will trim out the underside. So I'm going to do that with all four of these pieces. Okay, I brought these back. They have been pressed, and this one I used the scissors and trimmed them off. And then as I did that, it dawned on me that there are people, and I have done this before. After you stitch the one seam, you can go and, if you want to, stitch another seam like 3/8 of an inch or a 1/2 inch past there. And then when you cut between those two lines, you've got another little half square triangle to use in something else. But I'm not going to do that. I am just going to trim the rest of mine and lay them down where they go. We have our 9 units all ready to go now. 4 that are half square triangles and 4 that are half square triangles with an added flip and stitch corner. So now I'm going to put them together and sew them into rows. And as I press, I am going to press these open or in opposing directions. I think usually I press these to the center and these to the outside. And then we'll see how it goes. Okay, I have the squares sewn into rows, and now I am going to sew the rows together. And I've just pretty much finger pressed them. These are going out, these two are coming in, and these are going out. So I just flip this over, and then this is where I use a pin for sure. I push those seams together, or and then I put a pin just right. I usually put the pin just on the right side of my seam line. And most of the time, it handles it pretty well. And then I can line up the ends and sew that with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. And then I will do the same thing in adding the bottom row. Okay, I'm ready to sew the last row on, and I thought I would show you on my machine, if you're a new quilter, making that 1/4 inch seam allowance is really important. I do not want to like line it up with the side of the foot here. That's going to be too big. So I use this tiny little mark right there, which is a 1/4 inch from the stitching, from where the needle goes in. And so I will usually have that right there and ready. And this is what I'm watching as I'm sewing. I'm going to take that pin out. If you get to something like this where the seam allowances are starting to pile up, I just lift my foot and then I can, and when I get to the pin, remove the pin. Notice how I'm not covering up that little mark. And I'm sewing almost to the pins. And we're hopefully